There is a very eerie feeling within the Middle East right now. If you may have noticed, you're not hearing too much about the United States military receiving any attacks from Iranian-backed militant groups in the Middle East. This is because there is an expectation and verification that the United States military is expected in the very, very near future to unleash the full force of some sort of shock and awe retaliation due to the one-way drone attack that took out 3 U.S. soldiers in northern Jordan and injured at least 40 more. Now, there's verification that B-1B Lancers have been spotted flying across the Atlantic heading towards Central Command's area of operation, the Middle East. Initially, there were reports of B-1B Lancers flying out of the UK to head towards the Middle East, but again, this has been verified that the heavy bombers are coming straight from the United States to the Middle East. So, what are we to expect and what is happening right now? Well, let me talk from the narrative of the enemy real quick, because right now things are actually a little confusing. As far as it pertains to the Iraqi territories of Iranian-backed militias, it's been extremely quiet. This is because there is an expectation that a majority of the strikes are going to happen over Iraqi territory. In fact, it's been reported that Iranian-backed militias have been told to step down and to not attack U.S. forces. A couple of reasons for this. Reason number one, due to the public statements of this happening from the Islamic resistance in Iraq, they don't want to put shame on the Iraqi government or to embarrass the country of Iraq. Right now, you need to understand the country of Iran and Iraq right now, they're very close and they're really tight. And Iran doesn't want to piss off Iraq by utilizing the militia groups and causing more destabilization in Iraq. Again, I know from a Western perspective, why would Iran or Iranian-backed militias care about re-destabilizing Iraq? Again, go look into what's happening right now in Iraq. There's a ton of momentum in favor of these two countries reuniting and kicking out the U.S. military. So right now, again, Iranian-backed militias are told to stand down and most likely to hide in their foxholes or hide amongst the population. Just get out of the area and stay away from the United States. To further back this evidence, even the country of Iran has upped their anti-air defenses, expecting some sort of retaliation. And again, Iranian-backed militias, not only in the country of Iraq, but throughout the Middle East where they operate, such as Yemen, such as Syria, and Iraq and Lebanon, they have been told to chill out just a little bit. Now, I want to make clear, when you look into the evidence of reporting of what's happening, what we do know is that President Biden himself said there is going to be retaliation on a very big or large scale. Other key officials also confirmed this within the military community or component, such as Lloyd Austin, our top general, who again is in charge of overseeing all of this. The speculation is, at the time of making this video, it is Friday. Over the weekend, we are going to see a string of attacks in a matter of what we would call a shock and awe, or precision strikes on key military elements that pertain to the country of Iran. Now, what you need to look for in these attacks, because again, they're going to happen, whether or not it's this weekend, the U.S. military is not about to lose 3 military members and just say, oh, it's okay, nothing's going to happen. No. It's already been confirmed that something is going to happen, but here's what you need to look for. Everyone has asked and is looking into whether or not the United States is going to attack Iranian territory. That is going to be the big defying moment on whether or not the United States means what they say when they operate in the Middle East. As far as the U.S. military is concerned, they are being attacked by Iranian-backed militias. Iran. And look, the United States, Lloyd Austin, and other officials have said Iran and the United States, they don't want a war, they don't want a conflict, but everyone knows who's instigating these attacks, whether it's in Iraq, whether it's in Yemen, whether it's in Syria. So Biden needs to make a decision on whether or not he's going to check Iran and let them know we are willing to strike your country if you continue your actions. Now, the reason why I'm referring to this as a shock and awe, we already sort of saw this as far as Yemen, where the United States and British forces were able to launch a rather large attack of about 60 strikes on Yemeni territory going after the Houthis. Now, these attacks were not necessarily to strike personnel, but the attacks were taking out the logistics, radar systems, rail systems to stop the launching of munitions towards the ships in the Red Sea. But again, this was supposed to be more so preventative measures to let the area know, or the country who's in charge of Yemen know, Iran, that we have the capability to launch such strikes known as a shock and awe. And again, that is what is expected in the verbiage being used for this military operation. When you send in B-1B Lancers, you're not just going to send in a dinky little attack in an isolated area. Again, this is supposed to be, and is reported as, a 3-day process, or over several days going after a lot of targets throughout the Middle East. Now, the United States also finds themselves in a bit of a problematic mess, because when it comes to striking these Iranian-backed militant groups, there's always going to be the threat of you might hit the wrong target and civilians might get injured. This has always been the biggest issue for the United States operating in the Middle East, is going after the enemy, but the enemy will blend into the population, and unfortunately civilians get injured, thus that population will turn on the United States. And you have countries like Iraq and Afghanistan wars, where again, the United States was not only fighting against their enemies, but also trying to calm down local populations who absolutely did not trust the United States. And right now, as it stands, the United States, after the date of October 7th, they are not in good favor in the Middle East. Before October 7th, the United States has really managed to sort of lay under the radar of operating within Syria and Iraq. You never heard about the Houthis going after the United States. But now, after October 7th, which was the date that the Hamas attacked Israel, we now have this weird predicament where the United States' main mission is to protect Israel. But where is the line where the United States is straying away from that mission and just trying to show that the United States means business in the Middle East? We don't really have a clear-cut mission set on what exactly the end goal is, other than a retaliation strike for the soldiers who got injured and lost their lives over in Jordan. Because something else I must mention is that this is not the first time U.S. military members have been injured since October 7th. We're talking about a lot of soldiers have been injured between the countries of Syria and the countries of Iraq. And the United States, the last time they performed such an operation with using air power, which was used with an AC-130J Ghost Rider, it was a rather effective attack and actually taken out military personnel, but the attacks actually kept coming and they got worse and worse for the U.S. military. So the other issue the United States is going to have is what happens if this shock and awe actually backfires on the United States, where you bring in all these B-1B Lancers. We know we have the strike groups in the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. We have all of the firepower in the world, but the one thing that we don't have on the ground right now are ground assets. Recently, we have a report that the Islamic resistance in Iraq is not just an isolated group. It's actually 40 different organizations, separate organizations, who fall under the Shia umbrella, who follow Iranian-backed generals or Iranian-backed militia groups who've all formed together to create the Islamic resistance in Iraq. This has always been the umbrella term whenever things were released on Telegram or on Twitter, X, to have their public statements say, you know, we've just attacked the United States military. We are the Islamic resistance in Iraq. The reason why this is relevant is because, again, we only have a garrison of 2,500 troops in Iraq. And if we are now finding out that there are over 40 different military elements who are fighting the United States, we don't know if we've seen the full capacity of these little military groups. I'm calling them little, but some of these groups we do know have about 14,000 members within their organizations. So again, a lot of these scenarios can be a little problematic for the United States. That is why the United States has been extremely patient, to the point where I'm actually rather shocked and awed myself. So again, we shall see what happens. Do not be surprised if the strikes are not as crazy as it seems. A lot of these publications and news organizations are not taking the historical efforts the United States has been making to be patient. I always use the country of Niger as a case study for how we operate today. Because in the country of Niger, Africa, back in 2023, only last year, the United States has laid very low, has been very quiet, has not retaliated against juntas who were retaking over Africa. They've stayed quiet, and this is how the United States The Pentagon and the White House has been operating ever since October 7th. The United States has never wanted to get involved with this war in Israel as far as boots on the ground. We only see more clandestine efforts, or we see these efforts that are operating from naval ships. The United States absolutely wants to stay away from ground wars or ground invasions, but Iran has found the Achilles heel. There's only a garrison, again, of 2,500 troops in the country of Iraq. And in the country of Syria, it's way smaller. If these military members or Iranian-backed militant groups have 40 different organizations in Iraq, and we don't even know how many they have in Syria, this could be very problematic, and this whole shock and awe and retaliation could turn into something way bigger, especially if the cause and effect of the retaliation ends up being the effect is these militant groups start to strike the U.S. military way harder and way more frequent. So I will be reporting on this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you think it's going to be as epic as everyone is saying it is? I do think it's going to be a strong strike if the United States is going to be sending in B-1B Lancers, and we already have the firepower in the Middle East, and we saw what the capability was over Yemen. So again, we shall see what happens. Central Command is sort of showing signs that they are prepared to go all out and show the force of the United States military in the Middle East. So we shall see what happens. I pray for peace and I hope everything calms down, but expect something to happen very, very soon.